For many churches, the month of October is a month of stewardship emphasis. And I have to confess, it is very tempting to use this passage from Luke 17 as the illustration for a stewardship sermon. It's a story about 10 lepers who are healed, only one of whom comes back to thank Jesus. Can you see how easily this could become a sermon about tithing? About those $10 bills that went out into the world through the congregation, and the one that came back to praise God and fall down at Jesus' feet. It would be so easy. But I don't believe that's what this passage is really about. Although it would be a perfect time to talk about the joys of Christian stewardship and the principle of biblical tithing, I don't want to twist this passage into some other shape just to suit my particular purposes. So, what is this passage about? Well, it's about Jesus, who is on his way to Jerusalem. On the way, he passes through that region between Samaria and Galilee. He enters a village where he encounters 10 lepers. 10, you say? 10 lepers? Doesn't that seem like a lot? Well, it does, but you have to remember that in those days, they counted almost any kind of skin disease as leprosy. So these 10 may have been afflicted only with scabies or psoriasis or shingles, but nonetheless, they were considered lepers by their community, and as such, they had to abide by the rigid rules of Leviticus chapter 13, which says, "The person who has the leprous disease shall wear torn clothes, and let the hair on his head be disheveled, and shall cover his upper lip and cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp." So it was some of these people, these dirty, diseased and lonely lepers, who approached Jesus and begged him, "Have mercy on us." Can you picture them? 10 of them standing there in a line, a short stone's throw away from where Jesus was walking, with their raggedy clothes and their disheveled hair, begging at the top of their lungs for a little mercy. It must have been a pitiful sight. And who knows how long Jesus stood there looking at him before he was moved with pity and said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." But here's the good part. Luke says that as they went, they were made clean. And we need to pause long enough to appreciate what that would have meant. As they went to find a priest, wherever they could find one, maybe in their own little village, maybe somewhere farther away, they were made clean, which is to say that those diseased places on their bodies, those angry bumps and purple lumps and open weeping sores, were gone forever. And their skin was like new again. Any princess who has had a pimple on prom night can imagine how wonderful it would be to look in the mirror a second time and find the pimple was gone, that her skin was as silky and smooth as a Cosmo cover girl's. Now, multiply that feeling by 100 or by 1,000, and you will have some sense of what it was like for those lepers to look down and see that their ravaged, disease-ridden flesh had been healed, that there weren't even any scars there, just smooth, firm, beautiful skin. What it would mean is not only that your body was whole again, but that in a very real way your life was whole again. You could go and show yourself to the priest, be pronounced clean by him, go back to the home you had left some 10 or 20 years earlier. You could shed those ragged, filthy clothes and dip yourself down into a hot bath where you might soak for a long time. Wash your hair twice work in some conditioner, rinse yourself under warm running water, get out and pat yourself dry with a big, thick towel, slather on some lavender-scented lotion, and finally put on some clean clothes, go back to your old room, and begin your new life. Your life. Among those 10 lepers, only one of them seemed to grasp the full significance of what had happened. Luke says that when he looked down and saw that he had been healed, instead of going on to the priest, he turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He found Jesus and fell down at his feet and thanked him. And then Luke adds this as if it were something more than just an interesting detail. And he was a Samaritan. Now, maybe you know all you need to know about Samaritans. You probably know that they were despised by the Jews. As the writer of John puts it in the 4th chapter, Jews and Samaritans didn't have anything to do with each other. If you know that, then you might also understand how surprising it would be to find this former Samaritan leper stretched out at the feet of the Jewish Jesus, thanking him and praising God in a loud voice. But what surprises Jesus, really, is not that he is a Samaritan, but that he is the only one who came back to say thank you. Were not 10 made clean, he asks, looking around? The other 9, where are they? I don't know. Maybe they thought they were entitled to a little healing. They were Jews, presumably, God's chosen people. Maybe they thought that Jesus, as God's representative, was only giving them what they deserved, a little divine healing. Why not go on then and show themselves to the priest as the law prescribed and as Jesus himself had commanded, so that they could get on with their old lives as quickly as possible? But this Samaritan doesn't feel entitled. He is outside Israel, outside the favor of Israel's God as far as he knows, outside the realm of possibility that anything like this could ever happen. But then it does. The impossible happens. And then he can't help but give thanks. I noticed as I studied this passage last week that leprosy, like most diseases, doesn't discriminate. It will afflict Jew and Samaritan alike. And Jesus doesn't discriminate. He heals all 10 lepers and sends them all to the priest. The only time things get lopsided in this story is when the lepers are healed. Then only one of them, a Samaritan, comes back to thank Jesus, while the other 9 disappear, never to be heard from again. It often seems to work this way, that the people who don't really expect to receive anything are the most grateful when they receive it. Not too long ago, I tried to give some money to one of our homeless neighbors. I thought I had a $1 bill in my pocket, and I reached down and got the bill and handed it over, and he took it, and only then did I see that it was not a 1, but a 20. And by then it was too late. I hadn't really planned to give him $20, but he looked at that bill and then looked up at me and said, "I love you."